The title of this is Light Leaks, which sounds like an autobiography of a photographer. We start with a mystery. I was digging through my old 35 millimeter photo archives. I was digging through my old 35 millimeter photo archives and I found a pre-COVID roll of Fujifilm Superia 400 that had a repetitive light leak at a very specific vertical form at a very specific spacing throughout the entire roll. The problem is I didn't have notes that told me which camera had the light leak. So if you have a camera with a light leak and you don't want it to have a light leak, that's kind of an issue. So you have to fix it. A little bit of preamble. I will be slowing down my posting cadence for a little bit for the next few months. To get into the reasons why, check the timestamps down below. It'll be near the end of the video. So if you want to get into all of the riveting details of my personal life, by all means, please do so. Oh yeah, and make sure you like, share, subscribe, and all that stuff. I actually have a lot of 35 millimeter cameras. I like 35 millimeter. It's a very fun and very portable film format to shoot. And if you like grain, you can get really grainy film and it'll like be like, pow, right in the kisser, super grainy. And if you want less grain, you can just shoot a less grainy film. It's very versatile that way. Pretty much everything, pretty close to everything, is available in 35 millimeter. It's the most common film format. I have a lot of 35 millimeter cameras. I have this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. At one point, I also shot some stuff with a Nikon, but I never owned it. I was just selling it for a friend, and that wasn't in the right time frame. Anyway, so which camera is in fact the mystery? I had the photos developed at the Darkroom, which is a cool little photo lab, or big photo lab. I haven't been there physically. I've just sent them a lot of film in San Clemente, and they do a great job. Very consistent. They're pretty affordable. You send them money, and they will send you a prepaid envelope that you can just stuff your film in and send back to them. If you're getting large format developed, it's a little more complex, but it's pretty easy for 35, 120, 127, 126, 110, and any other relatively containerized or spooled format. This is not paid for in any way, shape, or form by the Darkroom. I give them a lot of money. I just think they're really cool. So fortunately, all of that, when I had those developed, was timestamped. So we were able to go back through our photo archives from cell phone photos because Google and Apple and probably Samsung like to creepily keep every single piece of data they can about your life. And then they show it to you years later as if it's like some sort of humanizing thing, like, oh, look at this. This is you 6 years ago. But it really comes off like, oh, I have photos of you from 6 years ago, which is really kind of not great. However, they're mostly benign. So we just deal with it. Anyway, in this case, it was helpful. So we were able to find this photo, which shows me holding a black camera, all black, not panda, not red, not blue, not silver, all black, which narrows the suspects down quite a bit, especially if you consider that we didn't have that guy, or that guy, or that guy. 3 cameras. At the time, it must have been the Leica R7. The Leica R7 is actually a pretty fantastic camera. Leica does make SLRs, and they are, even now, they are very high-end, although they're mirrorless. We still use the term SLR pretty often for an interchangeable lens camera, even though there's no longer a mirror or a pentaprism that slaps up. Anyway, Leica is more more well known for their rangefinders. People love the M series. They like to hate on the CL, even though it's a really cool camera. But we won't get into all the Leica Man stuff right now. The R7 is a pretty good rangefinder, or pretty good SLR, with good build quality, decent heft, excellent optics, and a lot of interesting features. Around the time that this was made, there was sort of a race. This was made in 1992. There was sort of a race for the fastest shutter speed. And Minolta actually won that for a camera that had 1/16,000th of a second shutter speed, which is pretty ridiculous. I'm not going to open the back because there's film in it. But I am going to keep this gaffer tape on. Light can leak in there. There are some pretty neat features, like you can use this little flap here to block light from coming in via the viewfinder window, which is really convenient for long exposure, like nighttime photography, like if you're getting star trails, because light can actually get in there and expose your film and give it funny little light leaks. But overall, this particular camera is a very reliable, fun camera to use. It does take batteries, but it can shoot without batteries. You're just stuck at 1/100th of a second shutter speed, or bulb mode, which is when the shutter just locks open until you tell it to stop. It also does high-speed sync and some other stuff that makes it really good for a professional photographer. As some random person on Reddit said, "It's all right, I suppose, if you're a professional," which probably tells you more about that random person than you really need to know, and more than I certainly wanted to know. There is one feature about this that I wish it had instead of this film window. It's missing. It's right here, and it's missing. A lot of cameras have it. It's a box end holder that holds the box end from the film that you have loaded in the camera. Also, if it had this feature, I really like this feature. This feature tells you that there is film in the camera, so you don't open it and expose the film. Expose the film. Don't expose the film. This Canon AE1 program was actually the other camera I had at the time of the aforementioned light leaks. That weird thing that you see happening in the lens, that is not AI, that is not some sort of like bizarro thing I'm doing with DaVinci. That's actually the light. You're seeing the light going back through the focusing prism, and you're getting a funny image. Ooh, there we go. You can see my finger a little bit. A funny image through the viewfinder. Kind of cool. Anyway, this one also has a box end holder, and it is Panda, or duotone, silver, black. Does not look the same when you're holding it like this. Adding more to the mystery is the fact that the light leaks only ever appear on one roll of film. I shot 2 rolls of HP5 on the same trip, and they did not have any light leaks. However, lining up the negatives with the film, with the frame, the film plane, shows the light leak occurring exactly at the film window on the back of the R7. Now, the R7 is a phenomenal camera, but when Minolta and Leica designed this camera, they built in I wouldn't call it a fatal flaw, but they built in a flaw, and that's the little film window on the back. It has a gasket that's supposed to keep the film frames from getting exposed by the light that passes through that film window on the back. However, it apparently doesn't always work. Film canisters are an organic thing. I suppose they're literally organic. Well, they're metallic, but film canisters are a physical thing, and the dimensions can change a little bit. Uh, Also, I recently read when looking at a roll of infrared film, which I haven't done anything about, uh, that if you have a window on the back of your camera, you need to tape it over because infrared film is thinner. I don't know why that would change the actual physical dimensions of the canister, but maybe there's something else in there that I'm not aware of. Anyway, it kind of looks like this roll of Fuji film was a little bit thinner, like maybe I dropped it on the floor and the canister was a little bit dented or something, and that just allowed a tiny bit of light to pass by that light seal. But still, there's a chance that it might happen again. And the Leica R4 through R7 series are actually known for having that light seal kind of compress or degrade over time. The R7 is from 1992, so not a lot of degradation has happened. Any of you who were born around 1992, you can probably attest to the exact level of degradation that has happened since 1992. But the film can compress. The seals are really easy to get, and I have one on order. That's a lie. I don't. I'm just going to have one on order. Anyway, quick test fix. Put some gaffer tape over the back of it. Shot a test roll, and it turned out wonderfully.
The Portland Japanese Gardens in Portland, Oregon are a great place to take some test photos. If you don't like the beautiful, serene atmosphere there, you can also go check out the International Rose Test Gardens nearby. There are a couple other gardens. I think there's a Shakespearean garden or something like that. There's also a zoo, an arboretum, and a mansion, and just a bunch of cool stuff up there above Washington Park. That aside, all these were shot on expired Ektar 100 and scanned in without many tweaks. So we've got a pretty standard kind of Kodak color palette without much saturation, oversaturation. The focus came out nice and sharp, and there are no light leaks.
Okay, so posting cadence stuff. I'll just roll back a little bit. I have a degree in photography, and I know a decent amount about photography, and I am a professional photographer and have been for a while. However, I believe that you should always keep learning things and you should always expand your skill sets. And I also think it's a great idea to keep adding stuff onto your resume so you can get other people to pay you more money over time. So I'm getting another degree. And as part of this second degree, I'm taking this class called, well, actually, I think the class is almost over. I think it'll be over this week, called Viral Media. And it's honestly kind of brutal. It's all this stuff about, viral theory and why things get into everybody's feeds and how they do things and the horrible, crushing impacts that constantly trying to stay in everyone's feeds has on influencers. Like, it honestly sounds like a terrible gig. I'm not doing this for that. I actually was required to start some sort of a brand, undefined, on social media for this class as part of my research. So instead of doing like a TikTok or focusing on 60-second Instagram videos or something like that, I decided to start a YouTube channel talking about my favorite nerdy subject, which is film photography. So the posting tempo required by this class was actually pretty brutal. It was 1 week plus a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you're making, TikToks and you're like, this is a frog, and you post, that is relatively quick. If you are trying to make, a travel log every single week, then you're like, where am I going to go? Okay, I'm going to go to Yosemite. I'm going to go to Crater Lake National Park. I'm going to go to, Portland. And you're just all over the place constantly, literally every week, and then editing that and pushing it out. You don't have time for sound editing. You don't have time for color grading. you're doing this just as a one-person show. And this is on top of, I have a full-time job because I like people paying me money. And I'm doing a full-time course load, uh, working on my house so I can sell it. There's probably some other stuff going on that I just forget about. But playing the piano on the floor? Yes, there is that. Anyway, this is actually a really fun thing to do, and I'm not dropping it, but I am going to be taking a few more courses, pushing myself toward graduation this summer so that I can stop doing this crazy full time plus everything else. So probably going to be posting videos every 2 weeks to every month, somewhere in that range, just depending on everything else that goes on in my life. Yeah. Cool. Well, with that, the mystery is solved. See you next time.